I'm going to say something that might catch a few people off guard, but in my eyes, Xbox is essentially just becoming the American version of Ubisoft. And I mean that in the worst way possible. And I plan to prove my point because essentially these two companies have the same strategy. Make increasingly mediocre games, destroy your core franchises, increase your monetization, push subscription services, and the only difference between the two of them is that one is trying to buy their way to success, and the other one has to sell themselves to somebody else to be successful. And we're talking about a company that was the one that normalized online multiplayer on consoles, the same company that normalized the control scheme that we use on controllers to play first-person shooters, even though I play mouse and keyboard. We're talking about the same company that defined an entire generation of gaming for basically players worldwide. While I can recognize their wins, I know that there's a lot of people that are out there that like Game Pass, and also at the same time, I am a huge fan of the fact that they got rid of console exclusivity. I've said this before, their best games are the games that they've bought, not the games that they've made, and that only works for so long, and I think I'm being proven right now. If you lack the leadership and the vision to be able to continue to produce high-quality franchises or create new ones, maintain the ones that you have, if your only option is to go out and buy other companies, you're just going to pass that rod on to them, and the cycle's just going to continue. Recently, Xbox laid off a lot of staff. They also shut down a bunch of studios, canceled a whole slew of games, both announced and some that were only rumored. And while I am all for this industry going to fat camp, you guys already know that. I think that smaller teams just make better games. I am struggling to see a future where Xbox succeeds before it drags the rest of the industry down with it. But before that, a word from today's sponsor. If you're in the market for a new PC, it's time to check out StarForge. I've been loving my new PC from StarForge Systems. It's incredibly quiet, sleek, and lightning fast. It's a way better build than I could do myself, and they've got something for everyone. They got Horizon PCs, which are great for your everyday gamer, much more affordable, and just great for a first-time user or even experienced players. You can kick it up a notch, go into their Navigator series that are packed with next-gen components, giving you some truly high-end performance. But if you're a content creator or an enthusiast like me, well, their Voyager series has everything that you're going to need. StarForge has a ton of incredible customization options with PCs inspired by popular games like Terraria and old-school RuneScape, anime like FreeRen, and even their own original designs. And if you really want to customize, they got limited run designs, plate lights, desk mats, and even posters to match your setup. Every PC is hand-built in Austin with premium quality and attention to detail, plus a 2-year parts and labor warranty. StarForge Systems, premium quality, white glove service, and all of it at an accessible price point. Follow the link in the pinned comment or the description below and check out StarForge Systems and find the PC of your dreams. Last week, Xbox laid off over 9,000 employees across the company. That includes multiple studios being shut down. The Initiative is gone. Perfect Dark is canceled. Everwild, Rare's next big thing that's been in development for nearly a decade, gone. These cuts were not just limited to flops or projects stuck in development hell. Even Call of Duty studios like Raven and Sledgehammer were hit. Turn 10, the Forza team, reportedly lost nearly half of its staff. Multiple Bethesda projects were canceled, and a brand new MMO from ZeniMax was scrapped as well. Now, as you guys know, I am all for this industry downsizing. These companies grew too big, too fast, and Xbox was one of the worst offenders. 24,000 employees in 2024 across all of their studios and support staff. And while they just laid off 9,000 employees, who knows how many new hires that they've quietly slotted in elsewhere. I've shown it before, but these layoffs always look massive on paper, but by the next time the next round hits, they've already hired back just as many people in different departments. So who knows if any of this is going to stick. Now, some people are buying Phil Spencer's line that this is all strategic and the company is healthy and more focused and stronger than ever. Others are just mourning the loss of talent and the canceled projects. But personally, I think that these guys are just trying to stop the bleeding. There is no long-term vision here, no stability, just a publisher that is on the slow road to collapse, hoping that something eventually sticks, while also just becoming Microsoft's test subject for services. From where I'm standing, this does not look like a healthy company. Xbox is massive. It's one of the biggest publishers in the industry right now, but it feels weaker than ever. They went on a buying spree. They spent nearly $70 billion to acquire Activision Blizzard, and what do they have to show for it? A long list of mediocre releases, a solid Oblivion remake, Game Pass stalled out at 35 million subscribers, Diablo 4 on life support, Call of Duty seeing its lowest player count in years. If this is what success looks like, I don't want to see failure. And yeah, maybe they have some great games or some promising games that are on the horizon, but they have done absolutely nothing to earn back player confidence. They have raised their prices, burned through goodwill, and have shown over and over again that they don't even know what a good game looks like anymore. At this point, I would argue that Xbox is the single biggest contributor to player fatigue and frustration across the entire industry. I'm going to say that 90% of today's adult gamers, hell, most of the overly nostalgic, hypercritical crowd that is begging for games to be like they used to be are that way because Xbox dropped the ball with some of the most iconic and influential franchises in gaming history. Halo, Fable, Gears of War, and more. We are talking about an entire generation that built their identity around the insane run of games that Xbox delivered during the Xbox 360 era. This was peak gaming for just about everyone. And now we have spent the last 20 years watching it all rot. Watching Xbox go from an industry leader to one of the most painfully average publishers around, desperately trying to buy their way back into relevance, buy their way back into profitability, and failing at both. I was talking with one of my friends the other day and I asked a very simple question. I said, in the last 10 years, how many genuine hits has Xbox put out? Not just a decent game, not just something that reviewed well. I'm talking about a real undeniable hit, commercially successful, critically praised, the kind of game that dominates conversation and defines a platform. I mean, every single time we ever have a conversation about Xbox, it's never about that. It's almost always about how profitable Game Pass is or how much money Call of Duty brings in. But Xbox isn't a platform anymore. It is the single biggest publisher in the world. So if they are that big, what do they have to show for it? Forza Horizon 5 in 2021 did well, strong launch. It still has a relatively healthy player base right now. Sea of Thieves in 2018 is still active and still loved. Gears of War 5 in 2019 was solid, but I'm being generous including it here because it really didn't move the needle all that much. Doom Eternal was a banger, but that game also rode the wave of COVID lockdowns. The Oblivion remake this year was definitely polished, fairly priced, and made a ton of money for those guys. Now, some people are going to want to bring up Hi-Fi Rush. Great game, reviewed well, but it didn't sell, so that doesn't really matter. Others might try to throw in Starfield, which I'm sure had a really big day one, but the backlash against that game likely tanked any future sales, and Bethesda has already completely abandoned it. You know what, just to be generous, I'll even throw in Black Ops 6. That is 6 games in 10 years. 6 games from a publisher owned by a company worth $3 trillion with 23 studios under its belt. And yeah, those 6 did fine. A couple of other games did all right. But I can't be the only one that's noticing how the wealthiest publisher on the planet, the one with the most IP, the most resources, the most studios, struggles to ship a game that is actually worth our time. From where I am standing, this should be a company that is dropping blockbusters, games that make the entire industry stop. And now I get it, this part is subjective, but tell me, with all those resources, all that talent, all that money, how is Xbox still not delivered a single Elden Ring, not a Baldur's Gate 3, not a Tears of the Kingdom, not a Helldivers 2, Black Myth Wukong, or even an Expedition 33? And that is what drives me crazy, because they have some of the most beloved studios and franchises in the world, yet somehow still end up canceling half of those projects, or releasing some of the most 7 out of 10 games in the industry. At this point, the only thing people associate Xbox with is Game Pass or how much money they're making off of Activision, because that's all they really are now. You know, more recently, I did try to take a more positive or at least optimistic view of Xbox. I gave them credit. The move away from console exclusives, that is just a good thing for the industry. They priced the Oblivion remake fairly. I want to see more of that. And at first, I saw it as smart, forward-thinking business decisions, but the more that I sit with it, the more I realize that it wasn't strategy, it was necessity. I mean, when your most recent releases include Redfall, Starfield, Avowed, Indiana Jones, Hellblade 2, Doom the Dark Ages, and South of Midnight, with the Oblivion remake and the Indiana Jones game maybe being the best solid outliers there, games that either underdelivered, nobody wanted, or never generated that much hype to begin with, you don't have the luxury of being exclusive. You have to put those games anywhere you can, otherwise you're not going to be making your money back. Right now, the biggest games that they have in their pipeline are Gears of War EA, Fable, Ninja Gaiden, The Outer Worlds 2, Clockwork Revolution, and Black Ops 7. And to be fair, there's some solid stuff on that list. But for a publisher this massive, that's built entirely around Game Pass, and they need to feed that ecosystem, I just don't see the math working. And even if these titles sound promising on paper, there is no guarantee that they're actually going to make it to market, or if they'll be any good when they do. Now, out of all of these games, Black Ops 6, Gears of War EA, Ninja Gaiden, and maybe Fable are the ones that I see having the most potential to make an impact, and even Fable is going to be a bit of a coin toss because we've barely seen any gameplay. Expectations for that game are already low, and at this point, I would not be surprised if it quietly just disappears. Call of Duty is going to keep printing money for these guys, at least until somebody finally builds a better competitor, and I think that there is an audience for Gears. I originally didn't, but seeing that Space Marine 2 just crossed 7 million copies sold, well, that proves that there's still a market for that kind of game as long as it's done right. Ninja Gaiden, on the other hand, is being co-developed by Team Ninja and Platinum Games, which should be a big deal. Character action games are thriving again, and I could easily see this game doing well, but then I remember these games are going to be $80. And now look, I get it. If the game is good, people are going to buy it, but that only goes so far. Space Marine 2 was $60. It didn't overstay its welcome, didn't try to be more than it was. I liked it. I liked it a lot, to be honest with you, but even then, I wouldn't have paid $80 for that game. Gears of War is going to offer the exact same core experience, just at a higher price. Same with Ninja Gaiden. And when you're operating with Xbox's current track record, that kind of pricing doesn't just feel risky, it feels delusional. In a lot of cases with these layoffs and closures and cancellations, I always see it as an opportunity to be able to make more focused teams. And maybe that's going to happen with some of these studios, but in Xbox's case, I think for them, the reason why they're doing it is that they walked into Activision Blizzard and didn't realize that they just bought Bobby's baggage. They bought Activision at its peak right before it was going to start a steep decline, and that's what's been going on right now. And if you add that with how those games have been performing, the Activision games have been performing, with Starflop, Avowed, the subpar offerings that they've been putting out, the decline in player spending, all of that starts to add up. And it all starts to become very costly for a company that is subsidizing a lot of their games through Game Pass. It's a lot like that Sideshow Bob skit. It just keeps stepping on rakes. I have zero confidence that Xbox has any plans moving forward outside of increasing prices to try to drive people into subscription services. Xbox has a lot of games that I was looking forward to, but release after release, I have consistently lost faith that any of these games are going to deliver on anything that I'm looking forward to, except for maybe Ninja Gaiden. That one actually makes sense to me. That one could probably do well. It'd be really difficult to be able to screw that one up, but it's going to be $80. It's going to be a struggle for a lot of people. Avowed and Doom the Dark Ages are what really black-pilled me on Xbox, because I was really looking forward to those games. I really had hoped that those games were going to be good, but the closer we got to release, the more weird things started to feel, and then it hit me that these guys really do want to become the Netflix of gaming. They keep making these games and shaping them to be for the most broadest audience possible, trying to cast this wide net and drag as many players into their ecosystem as they can. And as a result, it makes for some of the most lukewarm, generic, stale games that are in the industry right now. Like I said, they are the producer of some of the most 7 out of 10 games in the entire industry. When I saw that they changed Doom the Dark Ages difficulty from I'm Too Young to Die to Aspiring Slayer, and then they got rid of the baby bonnet and pacifier image for the difficulty, I knew that that game was cooked. Imagine trying to make a Doom that doesn't offend anybody. What are you doing, dude? But that's who Xbox is now. That's what they're trying to aim for. That's the future that they're looking for. And when I start looking at the decisions that they've made, both as a publisher and also as a platform, I sit back and I ask, how does Phil Spencer have a job still? Genuinely. He's been doing this since the Xbox One, and I don't really see them getting any better. They bought a lot of companies, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're any better than you were. And then I realized he's not the one making the decisions. Microsoft is. Sometime last year, I made a video where I was talking about the history of Xbox, and I pulled from their official documentary, and I layered in some of my own commentary, and I talked about where I thought things went wrong. But there was one thing that I missed, something that in hindsight was staring me right in the face. From the very beginning, the people who built the original Xbox were doing everything they could to keep Microsoft out of it. I mean, when they made the original Xbox operating system, the team had to actually sneak into Microsoft's headquarters just to steal the Windows kernel to get around not putting the entire Windows operating system on the Xbox like Bill Gates had demanded, something that ended up leading to most of those team members almost losing their jobs while also being screamed at by Gates for hours on end. For a while, Microsoft gave the Xbox team room to breathe, and it paid off. The original Xbox was bold. The Xbox 360 was a generational success. They weren't just good consoles. They helped redefine what console gaming could be. Xbox Live, digital storefronts, party chat. These are features that shape today's gaming industry. This is where they were born. It felt like a platform that was built by people who actually played games and cared about them. But that momentum didn't last. Microsoft restructured. Jay Allard, the creative mind behind the Xbox 360, was pushed out. Don Matrick stepped in, and slowly the priorities changed. Games and players stopped being the focus. It was never Microsoft that ever had the vision for this. It was always the Xbox team, most of whom aren't even at the company anymore. They've since been replaced by Microsoft yes men like Phil Spencer, who's been there for nearly 40 years, Matt Booty, and Sarah Bond. I think that it's Microsoft's influence that has shaped Xbox over the past decade, and it's the heart of where everything has gone wrong for these guys. It's why Halo is dead, why Gears of War is forgotten, why so many of their franchises have lost their cultural weight. Microsoft does not treat games like creative works. They treat them like software, products with a roadmap, a UI, a monetization cycle, no iteration, no risk, just content for a pipeline, all built to serve Game Pass, but never the player. I mean, you can feel it in how their games play, how sterile they are, how safe they are. They're built to look good in trailers, not to say anything, not to do anything, not to be anything. They're just not very good video games. They aren't evolutions of past successes. They're just hollow imitations, attempts to recreate something that worked before without understanding why it worked in the first place. It's not about making great games for these guys. It's about hitting demographics and padding out their portfolio. And over time, this approach has stripped out the very soul of their franchises. Halo doesn't lead the conversation anymore. Gears of War is barely even talked about. Hell, even Doom, once the loudest, most unapologetic shooter on the planet, feels like it's been through a focus group boot camp or something like that. HR got their hands on it. These games used to stand for something. Now they feel engineered to offend no one and resonate with no one. You do not build loyalty by sanding down the edges. You do not grow legacy by erasing what made the series matter in the first place. All you do is just push away the people that actually cared. It just feels like the bigger the project, the less they seem to matter. Halo, Gears, Doom, Fable, hell, even the Oblivion remake, despite being great, still ended up catching the censorship hammer. These are franchises that used to lead the industry, and now they just feel like stripped down versions of something that once used to have teeth. Each new entry is a little safer, a little flatter, sanded down for mass appeal and market tested into irrelevance. And that's the world that Xbox is building. The more money that they pour in, the more generic the result. Not because the talent isn't there, but because creativity doesn't survive when it's forced to justify itself as content for Game Pass. These games are not built to last. They are just deliverables designed to hit a window and then disappear. So no, it's not that Xbox can't make good games. It's that the further up the chain you go, the more those games get smothered because they need to be everything for everyone all at once. And I think when you zoom out, it's pretty clear that Xbox isn't just following a bad strategy, it's following Microsoft's strategy. Buy the competition, consolidate the market, lock people into your ecosystem, and then raise the prices once they're stuck. It's the same playbook that these guys have used in almost every other sector, and now it's being used to reshape the games industry in real time. The difference is it's a little bit louder. Every acquisition, Bethesda, Activision, Ninja Theory, Double Fine, pulls the market a little bit tighter. Xbox is done competing. They are now absorbing, and the end result isn't more innovation, it's sameness. Fewer choices, less risk, studios that are just quietly molded to fit one corporate vision. This isn't about creative synergy, it's about control. A vertically integrated pipeline where Xbox owns the storefront, the services, the studios, and if reports are true, they're not even going to need developers anymore because, well, we're hearing that the layoffs were actually for AI. And yeah, AI was always going to be coming for some of these creative jobs, but the speed of this pivot feels less like innovation and more like desperation. Microsoft sees AI the same way that they saw Game Pass, as a silver bullet, something to cut costs, boost margins, and automate risk before anybody else figures out if it even works or not. And I think this is the pattern, at least when it comes to Microsoft's influence and Xbox essentially just being their test subject. It's overcommit, overreach, and then scramble to try to make it all fit. Every single move they make is reactive. Every initiative, Game Pass, AI, studio consolidation. It is just the buzzword of the moment that was pitched to their shareholders first and then figured out later. None of it is about better games. None of it is about the players, and that's why the games suck. And I think that's something that a lot of people miss when it comes to some of these companies and their bizarre decisions that they make. Publicly traded companies do not follow a vision. They follow trends. Whatever is grabbing investor attention at the time is all that they care about. And once they've secured that money, they have to prove that they're using it. When Game Pass was first pitched, subscription services were the new big thing. That was what everybody wanted to have. So Xbox latched onto it, and then everything since then has been about justifying its existence. On paper, 35 million users sounds like a win. Day one access, massive library, seamless integration, but you dig deeper into the numbers and the cracks start to show. Even at scale, Game Pass is only bringing in $4 to $5 billion a year. That is what a single live service juggernaut can generate on its own, but Xbox is trying to sustain an entire empire off of that. Dozens of studios, thousands of employees, and an entire platform to maintain. That is not a strategy. That's barely even a balance sheet. And instead of reassessing, they just keep doubling down. More acquisitions, more price hikes, AI infrastructure, $80 games, $17 a month tiers, deluxe editions packed with early access perks to be able to front load their revenue. It's bloated, it's erratic, and it's wearing thin, especially on the players. This entire thing only works as long as people are still believing that it's going somewhere. And I don't think it is. I do not think that this is a healthy company. While Microsoft itself might be healthy, I do not think Xbox is. And people need to keep in mind that Xbox is a very, very small part of Microsoft. This is not a stable model. This is not going to be the last round of layoffs. Xbox bet everything on a strategy that never paid off, and now they're racing against the clock to try to make it look like it did. I'm telling you right now, you cannot fake momentum forever, not when reality keeps catching up. At this point, everybody already knows what Microsoft's game plan is. It's one of the reasons why you'll see some publishers and studios that are out there that say, absolutely not, I will not have my game on Game Pass, because they don't want to support it. Microsoft wants to collect as much IP, valuable IP as possible, to draw players into their ecosystem. Then they want to make sure that they put that ecosystem on every single device so you can get it anywhere you want to. They'll corner the market because they'll have all those players in the ecosystem. And then they'll slowly increase the prices to make Game Pass make the money that they're looking for. Their next step that they're adding to it is, and one that they probably didn't see coming, is that they're going to gut the studios and replace them with AI. So then that way they can just generate the content even faster, even cheaper, and make more money out of it. I respect it. It's brutal, but I don't think that it's going to work. Mostly because your games suck, and then also because you're not having the customer in mind. It's all just about your profitability and the systems that you want to create. One of the things that I've noticed over the past couple of years in both product and service industries is that very few of these companies have the customer in mind anymore. They're not thinking about their taste. They're not thinking about what they actually want. They're not even thinking about their economic conditions. And in a games industry where you need people to be playing your games and you need people to be interested in your games, you're going to have a really hard time finding success. Everything that they do now hinges on Game Pass. And I've been thinking about it. It's essentially a race against time. And I think the goal essentially is just continually getting further and further away from them. That's why AI seems like the best silver bullet of the moment for them, because they can start cutting some of the development costs and then hopefully shortening the window a little bit, because they need Game Pass to be able to catch up profitability-wise with how much they're spending on making games, and also just general inflation and developer salaries and how much, how much money people have. And I don't think the technology is going to evolve as fast as these companies think it will. I think that there's some folks that are out there that do truly believe that they're just going to be able to, one press of a button, instantly make a video game and then sell it to people. But if that's actually the case, and if that's what you're trying to go for, then wouldn't I just do that myself? What would the point of any of your services or your platforms or any of this stuff become if that was the future that you're racing towards? One where I don't need to buy anything from you anymore. What are you doing? Microsoft and Xbox are prime examples of overcommitting to things. They overcommit to a lot of stuff. Game Pass is one of them. I think AI is now going to be the next one for these guys. And it's not that these things can't work. We've already seen that in the past. I think a really good example of this is some of the people that committed to like cloud gaming, right? We had the Stadia, the Ouya, the OnLive, all these different systems that just were too early. You could still definitely do it, and I think it still has a future, but at the exact same time, you can definitely be too early to something, overcommit to it, and then also overinvest into it. And I think that's what's been going on with Xbox. The only difference is, and one of the reasons why they're able to get away with it, is because they're such a small part of Microsoft. I think I looked it up, and they're only like 8 to maybe 10% of Microsoft's total earnings. That's nothing in the grand scheme of things. So chances are they just look at Xbox now as just their little testing ground. They can say one thing to their shareholders and then go and try to see if it can work out with Xbox. And if it does, then they can bring that over into other services. And if it doesn't, who cares? It's just video games, right? Yeah, if you actually think about it, the Dreamcast also overcommitted. They had online infrastructure before the infrastructure was even in place for us to even be able to play online games in a lot of cases. But that's just what these companies like to do. Maybe Xbox will be the next Sega. We'll see. I could easily see them getting in the position in which Microsoft just gets kind of tired of it and just sells Xbox off to somebody else or something like that. Who knows? Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did enjoy the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video. Please share the video. Comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about the recent layoffs, what you guys think about Xbox or some of their upcoming games. I wish I had more faith because some of the games look cool, and I hope that they actually are. Anyway, stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. I'll catch you guys in the next one.